The Craigslist murder, one of the most popular crimes ever. Why? Listen to the story.
It's a story that has shocked the nation.
In the search for the so-called Craigslist killer.
The brutal murder of a masseuse he met online.
The internet never forgets. We've all probably heard this sentence before. No matter what we do online, we leave digital traces. Everyone knows this, yet some people feel too safe on the internet and become careless. So careless that they believe they're untouchable online. In 2009, a young man in the United States seemed to think this way, without realizing that his own digital traces would lead to his arrest as a murderer. How could a US classified ads website enable a murder and at the same time help catch the killer? In 2009, Julissa Brisman is 25 years old. The young woman lives in New York City, where she was born and raised in Manhattan. Julissa is trying to make it in the modeling industry and also hopes to become an actress. She has some jobs, but her big breakthrough has not happened yet. She's not home often. She travels often and moves around the country. That is part of her side job, which helps her make a living. Julissa gets paid to attend so-called topless or bikini parties. She earns good money from this, making up to $1,000 per party. In 2009, she starts another business. On the website Craigslist, she offers erotic massages. Craigslist works similarly to classified ads. Anyone can offer or find services, items, or jobs. Even back in 2009, the platform already has over 50 million users, and Julissa is one of them. At that time, Craigslist even has a specific section for erotic massages and similar services. However, Julissa does not use her real name on Craigslist. Instead, she calls herself Morgan. In April 2009, she receives a message from a potential client. At that time, Julissa is passing through Boston. She has rented a room on the 20th floor of the Boston Marriott Copley Place Hotel. She gives the client her room number and sets an appointment for the next day. The man, who calls himself Andy online, wants to book an erotic massage with Julissa. They plan to meet in Morgan's hotel room on April 14th at 10 p.m. To feel safer during her appointments, Julissa always communicates with a friend before and after meetings. This friend also helps her manage her schedule. She knows that Julissa has an appointment with a client named Andy at 10 p.m. that evening. She also has access to Julissa's Craigslist account and can read the chat messages with her clients. At 11 p.m. on April 14th, Julissa's friend sends her a text message asking if everything went well. An hour has passed. The appointment should have been over by then. But Julissa does not reply. The friend sends another message at midnight. Still no response. She continues trying to reach Julissa in the early morning of April 15th. Worried, she calls the Marriott Hotel to check on her friend. But it is already too late. By the time Julissa's friend calls the hotel, there's already panic at the Marriott, because a woman was murdered there the night before. Julissa Brisman is found dead in her hotel room. She was shot 3 times at close range, once in the heart, once in the center of her chest, and once in the stomach. A neighbor in a nearby room heard loud noises on the night of April 14th and stepped into the hallway to check. Julissa's blood-covered body was lying in the doorway of her hotel room. At the crime scene, there are signs of a struggle. It looks like Julissa physically fought back against her attacker right before the shots were fired. When the police learn from Julissa's friend about her Craigslist business, the investigators immediately take action. The police believe that the murder was a robbery that got out of control, and that Julissa Brisman is not the only victim of the Craigslist killer.
Not only was this a serial armed robber and a vicious murderer, but when I got the call after the murder at the hotel that there had been a subsequent armed robbery in Rhode Island committed by the same individual, I realized that we were dealing with someone that murdered without hesitation and would not stop doing what he was doing until we stopped him. And so we had the trappings of a serial murder case here about to take off.
During the week of Julissa Brisman's murder, 2 more attacks on women take place in Boston. All the victims have one thing in common. They offered erotic massages on CRAIGSLIST. The first incident happens on April 10, 2009, at the Westin Copley Place Hotel, just 4 days before Julissa's murder. There, a 29-year-old woman named Tricia Leffler is attacked, tied up, and robbed by a supposed client. Tricia tells the police that she had arranged the meeting with the man through CRAIGSLIST. They first met in the hotel lobby, something Tricia always does with her clients. If she ever felt uncomfortable, she could simply refuse to go further. But the client she meets on April 10, 2009 seems normal, so she leads him into her hotel room. As soon as he enters, he threatens her with a gun and orders her to lie on the floor. He ties her up and then searches through her suitcase. He steals several $100s in cash, along with bank cards and gift cards. He also takes a pair of Tricia's underwear. The attacker wears gloves and takes Tricia's phone. He deletes his contact information from it, cuts the hotel phone's cables so she cannot call for help immediately, and flees. However, the Westin Copley Place Hotel has security cameras that capture the suspect, just like the Marriott Hotel, where Julissa Brisman was attacked. The attacker of Tricia and the murderer of Julissa have striking similarities. Moreover, the hotel where Tricia was assaulted is directly across from the crime scene of Julissa's murder. Between these 2 attacks, another incident occurs in a different hotel. On April 12, 2009, a woman named Cynthia Melton has an appointment with a client at the Holiday Inn Express Hotel in Boston. But instead of receiving a massage, the man demands money and threatens her with a gun. He forces her to lie on the floor, ties her up, and searches the room for cash. The attacker only flees when Cynthia's husband enters the hotel room to pick her up. The description of the suspect perfectly matches the man recorded on camera during Julissa Brisman's murder and Tricia Leffler's attack. The police believe that the person who booked the massage with Julissa is her murderer, and that he is also responsible for the attacks on Cynthia Melton and Tricia Leffler. The only evidence the police have are the security camera recordings and Julissa's CRAIGSLIST chat logs. The email address used by the suspects leads the police to an apartment building in Quincy, Massachusetts. The place is only about a 30-minute drive from Boston, where the 3 attacks happened. And one of the residents of this apartment building looks exactly like the man caught on the hotel's surveillance cameras. His name is Philip Markoff. He is 23 years old. He has never committed a crime before and has lived a quiet life. Philip is ambitious, graduates high school with top grades, and is studying medicine at Boston University at the time of the murders. Philip is engaged and plans to marry his fiancée, Megan McAllister, in the summer of 2009, but that will never happen. Besides the IP address in the camera footage, Philip is strongly incriminated by mobile data. The movement profile of his phone shows that he was at the Marriott Hotel on April 14th at 9:41 p.m., about 20 minutes before his scheduled meeting with Julissa. His fingerprints were found on the tape used to tie up Tricia Leffler during the robbery, just like on the wall of the hotel room where Cynthia Melton was attacked. When shown a photo of the suspect, Tricia also identifies Philip as the man who robbed her. His internet data shows that Philip had been searching for sexual encounters on CRAIGSLIST since at least mid-2008, with both women and men. He called himself Sex Addict. The police spend several days watching the apartment building where Philip lives. Finally, on April 20th, 6 days after he murdered Julissa Brisman, they make their move. That day, Philip and his fiancée leave their apartment with large travel bags and get into their car. They plan to spend the weekend in Connecticut visiting casinos. But they don't get far. Just a few minutes into their drive, the police stop their car. Philip's fiancée has no idea that her partner is about to be arrested for robbery and murder.
Police say they have caught the CRAIGSLIST killer. He's a 22-year-old medical student and is accused of killing one woman and robbing another. But there may be more victims.
Philip Markoff is engaged to a young woman named Megan McAllister. When the accusations against Philip become public, both Megan and Philip's family are shocked. Megan was not at home during the attacks on the women and is horrified when she hears that her fiancé is not only suspected of the robberies, but also of murdering Julissa Brisman. She had surgery on her back shortly before and spent the first weeks of April in her hometown to recover. She also used this time to plan her wedding with Philip, which was scheduled for August. She returns to Quincy shortly after Julissa's murder and moves back in with Philip. When Philip is arrested, she cannot believe that her fiancé could have used her absence for a series of robberies and a murder. Megan even writes open letters to newspapers defending her fiancé. She says that Philip is an intelligent young man who would never commit a crime. She claims that the police and the press are trying to frame him just to sell a good story. But soon, more and more evidence piles up against Philip Markoff. During a search of his apartment, the police find a gun. He had hidden it inside a hollowed-out medical textbook. And the bullets that belong to this gun match exactly the fatal injuries of Julissa Brisman. On top of that, there are the CRAIGSLIST chat records, the surveillance footage, the IP address, and Philip's movement data. Philip Markoff is charged with murder, armed robbery, and kidnapping. He pleads not guilty, but the police and later the court do not believe him. When he is arrested, he has a driver's license with him, registered to a man named Andrew. It is unclear whether he stole or faked this license. But one fact is certain. He used this license in February 2009 to buy a gun, the same type of weapon that was used to murder Julissa Brisman on April 14th. The motive for the robberies, and especially the murder of Julissa, was never fully clear. Several reports say that Philip Markoff had been visiting casinos since his school days. In addition, he had more than $130,000 in student debt in 2009. So maybe his motive was money problems. But that is just speculation, because questioning Philip Markoff was difficult. He refused to give details about his crimes, and sometimes could not be questioned at all, because he repeatedly tried to take his own life. At times, he was placed under special observation in prison, but not all the time. Not in summer of 2010. He was no longer under strict surveillance. Because of this, on August 15, 2010, he was found dead in his prison cell. He had been in jail for only about a year. Philip managed to make a knife-like weapon from a pin and a piece of metal, and used it to fatally injure himself. Before doing so, he wrote something on the walls of his cell with his own blood, the name of his former fiancée Megan, and the nicknames they had for each other. Photos of the two were scattered all around the room. His trial was supposed to start in March 2011, but by taking his own life, Philip Markoff avoided justice for the robberies of Trisha and Cynthia and the murder of Julissa Brisman. After this case, CRAIGSLIST changed some of its rules. In 2010, the section for erotic services was removed. Also, users were required to provide more personal information. Unfortunately, this change came too late for Julissa. The case of Julissa Brisman is still discussed in the media today and remains well known, especially in the United States. A semi-fictional movie about the case was even made. It was produced in the US and is called The CRAIGSLIST Killer. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on movies and TV shows that handle real crime cases in this way. Not as a documentary, but as a basis for a partly fictional story. In recent years, this genre has become extremely popular. But when crimes are still fresh, like in the case of the CRAIGSLIST Killer, it often sparks controversy. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you want to support this channel, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks in advance, and thanks for watching. Here you can find the interesting case of Carly Gregg, a 14-year-old girl who did something horrible. See you soon. Until then, stay safe.